You stupid bitch. Yeah, you're a stupid bitch. You stupid bitch. So yes, I've started reading finally. Is it Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, is it?
That is correct, by Taylor. What is her name?
Swift.
Here, Taylor Jenkins Reid.
Ah,
Taylor
yes.
Jenkins Reid, plus.
Please. You gave it to me over a year ago, but it's one I wanted to read because I read the back of it and I thought, oh, this sounds kind of fun. But I've gotten I did a little chunk of it. It's only been one night so far that I've read. I've just got a lot going on at the moment. I've really been powering through my diploma. So I just submitted my 11th module, no, my 10th module for
Been doing
marking
a
out
lot
of
of these
12.
ones.
Scroll.
Yeah, on your phone, scrolling till
Oh yeah,
midnight.
yes. So, so yeah. For those at home, she was holding up a hand and running a finger down it. Um, but yeah, no, I did got my diploma, the 10th module in. I've got my 11th one ready to go. I just need to go over it and fucking fine tune it and shit. And it's a fucking horrible one. It's all about budgets and Excel spreadsheets, and they don't even give you too much information. They're like, here, just fill this out. And you're like, ah. Anyway, and then I've just got my final one. So by the time we get to our next season, I should definitely have finished it, which is a big achievement for me. And then
Yes.
also with our podcast work, it's just been very busy. And yes, so I end up doom scrolling of an evening because I'm just like, oh,
Because you
I
need that
can't
mindless release where you don't have to think about
think
stuff.
about
And look,
anything.
to be fair, you do the lion's share of the podcast admin work. I just swan in, prepare my notes an hour before, do a
Ready?
Thursday little
Let's go.
update that some weeks I remember to do and some weeks I don't.
But it should be after I've done my diploma, at least that should free up a lot of that mental energy where I can go, and read.
Yes.
So I will get on board and join you in this competition seriously.
Well, I've already finished one book this week and I am 3/4 of the way through my second, which I hoped to finish last night, but I got caught up in the old scroll.
Uh,
Um, the old Insta scroll, and so I didn't
yes.
actually do it. But yeah, by this time next week, I will probably be up
Well,
to my second or third book.
we know that you're going to absolutely decimate me in this competition, you've said.
I'm doing this so that you can start reading more. That's why
It
I'm
is. It
challenging
is
you.
good.
I'm appealing to your competitive nature
And is it a
because I
six?
know it's really important for you to start reading again.
It is. Is it 6 months? The
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, so look, then I'll have plenty
December
of time to catch
31st.
up. You never know. During my holidays, I might speed read a couple of books.
Are you
Damn
having
it.
holidays?
Yeah, we've got the sisters coming in at the end of the
Oh,
month. So we've got 2 weeks
I
off.
need a holiday.
I know it's going to completely wipe out our leave, though. We both will
Yeah.
have zero leave by the end of it, but it'll be worth it. But anyway, welcome to Stupid Bitches Say What, our Aussie podcast about everything and nothing and books. Um, but always with your host, Skye Collett.
And Sean Beano Stupid Bitch Hepkins.
Hi.
Hi.
So what, pray tell, are you drinking this evening, you stripper bitch?
I thought you'd never ask, Beano. So I promised myself that I'd just have a couple of beers tonight, but it's been a long week, and then I came home and went, I need a red. I need something stronger than a beer tonight.
Good on you.
So I'm drinking Annie's Lane from Adelaide.
Oh.
A Cab Merlot 2021 vintage
Ooh.
release. Have you ever drunk an Annie's Lane?
I don't think so, but I do love a Cab Merlot.
I've drunk a few Annie's Lanes. I think there is a Cab Sav in the range as well, but it's lovely. It's very nice. I do like Annie's Lane.
Did you have a sip?
I've had many sips, yes, because we've been gas bagging for a little bit before we started recording.
I did
So,
have a little chin wag, if you will.
because we're only doing one recording tonight, people. So, we've got things that we have to do tomorrow. We will be seeing each other tomorrow
As
evening. So.
well, yes.
But we're just going to be refined and behave ourselves tonight, aren't
We
we?
are, because I have to work tomorrow. I have to be up and out at 6:30 in the morning.
Oh, yuck.
I know, just till 2:30, but I'll have enough time after that to maybe have one drink with the crew and then get an hour nap in before having to get ready and heading out to see one Macy Gray.
Do we know where we're meeting?
Yeah,
Maybe I should save this for later.
where we're meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called Dark Red, the wine bar next door to the music hall.
Is it the Fortitude Valley Music Hall?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
So
okay.
there's a wine bar called Dark Red next door. It's apparently meant to be really groovy. They play the music.
Groovy. It's really groovy, is
which
it?
is cool / groovy. They play the music of the artist that's playing that day in there.
Oh, I think you did tell me about something about playing the artist that was going. Yeah, I did.
I posted it in our little chat.
That.
So
yes.
It should be fun. Yeah. So
cool. Oh. I was waiting for you to ask how my week's been, but it's actually my time. And stupid bitch, what are you drinking this evening, please?
Well, as we just went through, because of work tomorrow, I've gone for a bottle of white tonight, because I don't feel that gives me as much of a the next morning. So it's a 2022 Reverence, Coonaula, Clare Valley, Pinot Gris. Our wines tell a story spanning centuries. They have tradition of on their side, nature in their hearts, and purity in their soul.
You're the only person I know that could drink one bottle of white and then get up and go to work at 6:30 in the morning. And he will drink that whole bottle, listeners.
Oh, yeah, damn straight. I'm going white for something light. You should see
white me. For something light. You're a poet and you didn't know it.
Oh, I knew it. You better believe it.
I knew it. Screw it.
Screw it. I knew it. But how's your week been, you dumb bitch? Oh, and by the way, it tastes delish, light and light.
I'm very happy for you. Very happy to hear that. So how's my week been? I have already touched on the fact that I read one book this week and I'm on to another. 4 stars for the first book.
Oh, and what was the book called?
In the Deep. I've forgotten the chick's name. It's on my bookcase, but it's turned around the wrong way, so I can't see it. Set in Australia.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, it was quite good, actually. It might be one that you'll enjoy. I might put it on your stack as opposed to my sister's stack. So that's what's been happening. I haven't listened to any new Macy Gray or any old Macy Gray, I'm ashamed to say.
Wow.
So I'm hoping that my recollection of all the words to the song is going to just pop straight
naturally
front of mind when she starts performing, because I used to know some of the abstract tracks from her first and second album. So, and I have seen her before. Yes. I saw her at V2000. V
Festival, yes. So it's telling a friend at work that. Sandra's going to be at Macy Gray tomorrow night as well.
Oh, really?
Do you remember Sandra? We saw it at the Willow Point pub that day.
Oh, yes, I do. Yes. Oh, cool. I reckon Sandra. There's probably going to be a few people there we might run into.
Like, oh, my God.
Yeah, look who's here. Oh, my gosh. Because, there would potentially be lots of Macy Gray fans out there, although my husband doesn't know much about Macy Gray at all, so he's not coming.
Well, my husband isn't coming either. He only...
Girls' night.
Yeah, total girls' night. And he goes, no, I only like the joke I have about her. That's it, really. You know, Macy Gray died. What? Yeah, didn't you hear Macy Gray's dead? What? What happened? She tried to say goodbye and she choked. Skye's actually laughing out loud. You can't hear her.
Oh my God, Vincent.
I know.
So a couple of other things that I wanted to touch on. First of all, I'm practically not going to see my husband for about 48 hours, except for very brief hi, goodbye. So we've been at work all day today, come home, had about 10 minutes together while I was smashing down my dinner, and then he's gone to football. We'll finish the podcast. I'll probably crash because I'm exhausted. Then he'll come home from football. We'll get up in the morning, do a little bit of a clean, and then he's going to do training with his juniors, then on to watch more football, then to go drinking with the boys from football.
Bless. Oh. And then you'll be drinking with the girls for Macy.
Yes, but he's going to stay out the night So I'm like, but baby, I won't have you sleeping beside me. I want you to come
Oh, so
home.
he's not staying at home that night.
No, because he's going all the way out to Redland Bay and it's so
Oh,
far.
yeah, fair
And
enough.
he's just going to drive out there because he's got to already be out there for the juniors training and etc. etc. So he'll be out there. So he's going to just stay the night and drive home in the morning. Truth be told, I will probably not wake up until about 10 at least on Sunday anyway.
Yeah.
However, when I get home, I'll be like, there's no one here.
So Nat's not staying at yours?
Oh, actually, I'm not sure. I haven't really spoken to her about it, but it probably will be easier for her to just train it in and out from her place because if she
Yeah.
has to drive all the way here, then get up and drive home,
It's the
unless she's got to
same,
pick up her daughter,
Yeah.
I doubt that she will come and stay. She might. So yeah, that's going to be really tough. And the other thing that I wanted to talk about is no more vapes. So
Yeah.
this week, Tyler went to the Wellington Point vape shop, which is about 5 minutes from our house, and walked in there. And the super sketchy guy that worked there was all like wigging out and super paranoid when Tyler walked in and was just like looking at him, not saying anything, like looking really sketchy. And Tyler's like, "Have you got any vapes?" And he's like, oh, yeah. And then he pulls them out of his pocket and they were like $50 each he wanted for them. And Tyler was like, nah, not interested, walked out. And then on Wednesday night, we went to go and get Thai for dinner. And we went into the vape shop where I got my old school vapes from that still had the old school ones.
Yeah.
And we walked in and they had a massive sign on the counter. Vapes are illegal. We no longer sell vapes. Don't ask for vapes.
That's fucked, isn't it? So for those
So
international listeners, we had a law passed recently in Australia, and it was effective of the 1st of July that you could no longer buy vapes. I think it was from the beginning of the year they were no longer able to import them. So that's why the stock was getting low. But we went to our vape shop yesterday and walked in and we're like, so what's the story? And he's like, yeah, all hidden basically. We asked if he had this brand, this brand. So he only had about 3 or 4 brands left,
oh
and the pickings
god.
were very slim. But yeah, we had to pay $40 cash for your standard 6,000 puff vape. Got 2, but I'm actually booked in to get a prescription on Monday.
Oh, vape prescription.
Yeah, so because then you can go to the chemist and buy pods, and each pod's meant to be about 20 cigarettes worth, and it's $10. So
So
I'm just
is
going to
it
go.
flavored?
You can get either tobacco, mint, or menthol, or unflavored.
Oh, yuck.
So Vinny's happy because he loves just menthol anyway. So I'll probably just go on the menthols, see what they're like.
Oh, yuck. Well, it's good, I guess, because it's just a perfect opportunity to quit and to face it. I was probably never going to quit.
Yeah.
So now it's just going to force me. So I've got this last one. Tyler's been trying to sneak little cheeky smokes of it, and I'm like, no.
That's for my podcasting.
And plus, there's other vapes in the house that he can use, but he wants this one. I'm like, no, that's mine.
Yeah.
Mine.
That's my special one.
And it's nearly dead anyway, so it doesn't have much. It probably I might be able to make it last tomorrow night, but that'll be the end of it. So
and then we won't need a prescription from the 1st of October either. You can just walk straight into the chemist and buy the vapes, apparently.
oh.
But yeah, between then now and October, I'm gonna need a vape. And
So
apparently
how are they
too,
doing that then? How are they getting away with selling them at the chemist?
because
Is it because they're going to regulate it?
It's regulated, and also I read a big article on it, and they reckon that so the vapes that we get will have a lot less of the shit that gets put in the ones that we get from America or overseas, wherever, that they think causes a lot of bad shit. So it'll be interesting to see what they taste like and how they are, but they will probably be a bit better for us as well. I know.
I love your rationale. I'm going to move my camera down just a cinch.
Yes, we were looking at your roof. Shows your titties.
I didn't. I had my self view off, and I was like, "Oh, I actually haven't seen myself on camera tonight. Just trying to make sure I look okay." And then I put it on. I was like, "Oh, the camera's all the way up there." So how's your week going, you stupid bitch?
The week has been going good, thank you. As I said, I've been quite successful with my diploma this week, getting a lot of it done. One thing that wasn't such a success was the editing of our nightmare episode of Pop Culture Cults.
Oh gosh.
Which, so that will be our previous episode when our dear listeners are hearing this. So they would have heard it by now and would have heard the drunken ramblings. If you think
Well,
the
everybody
episode,
this week heard the drunken
well, the
ramblings
beginning
of the
of,
true
yeah,
crime.
it gets worse. And if you think that episode itself was messy, Jesus Christ, you should have listened to the 3 hour unedited version of that one episode. We start talking about for about 45 minutes about stuff in completely nothing to do with the podcast.
I was only 4 beers deep in the beginning, and then I caught up quick smart in the second episode, didn't I?
We burst out into Hold On by Wilson Phillips at one point. I had to cut it. It was kind of good, but then we kept sort of speaking and singing over each other, and it just went on for like, we do a whole verse basically.
Almost Saturday night for us, guys.
And a chorus, yeah. Usually happens after the recording, but yeah, this time we thought, fuck it, let's bring it, splice it in. Another good thing that happened for me is Survivor 46, the US version, is finally on Paramount. So you know how much of a Survivor buff I am.
Yes.
This season I refused to watch it on catch up on the 9 replay, whatever they call it, because the ads just kill me. The repetitive
the ads are just the worst.
Fucking kill me. And the channel that they play the US Survivor on in Australia, 9 Go, we don't get it on Foxtel for some reason. So I can't even record it and fast forward the ads like a regular person. So this season, instead of putting myself through that pain and losing interest throughout the show, I avoided all spoilers. And then once the season's finished, it's finally got to Paramount now, and it's glorious. I'm 3 or 4 episodes in, and it's just been amazing. The season got a very bad rap.
Really tough for you though, because I mean, you must be in forums and must follow them on Insta and Facebook.
Every time it was coming up, I was like, snooze for 30 days, snooze for 30 days. And then another thing would come up 30 days later. I'm like, snooze for 30 days, snooze for 30 days. So it was tough. Thank you for recognizing that. But yeah, the season's got a bit of a bad rap. People are like, oh, it's shit. And I'm actually really enjoying it. And unfortunately, I do know who won.
Oh, no.
It was very accidental. It was an accidental scroll on an article about a future season. And then as I was reading it goes, by so-and-so, yeah, who won last season. I was like, fuck. And because I'd already started the season at this point, I can't even try and forget. I know who it is, but it kind of adds a different element to it. So I know who wins and I can watch their game as it goes on. So, but still annoying. But yeah, that's my week so far.
Fabulous. So I guess we should just get into it, right? Now, are you going to just totally, break me?
Destroy you? Well, let me just say, for my final true crime of the season,
here we go.
I'm going to do the Groene Family Massacre.
Already sounds really bad.
It's one from People Magazine Investigates, TV show on Foxtel, which is all about true crime, which Vinny and I quite enjoy. We've watched all 8 seasons now, or 7 seasons.
What show's that on? What channel?
I think it's like Crime Investigation or Investigation Discovery.
Okay.
Yeah.
People Magazine
Investigates.
Okay.
Which is our Who magazine, really.
Do you know that you said to me last week that you had 2 brutal ones and that you decided to do the less brutal one last week? And was that less brutal?
Well, what was last week again?
It was the mountain one.
Oh, the Kim. Well, it was less brutal in the sense one person died.
Someone survived, yes.
And there was people who survived. It was traumatic. This one is this is a journey. It's a bit of a wild ride. It's a 2-parter special on the People Magazine Investigate. So trying to get it all succinct and in enough time to do it justice without, taking up the whole episode was a bit of a challenge, but it's a journey. Yes, there's brutality in it, but like that's not the whole sort of story, I guess. But I mean, it's death. There's always going to be something. It's like,
oh dear.
Are you right?
Country?
America.
Of course it is. You love.
Are you ready?
Ones. Yes, I'm ready. Go.
So Brenda Groene, I think it's Groene, Groene. Brenda Groene and her family lived in a quaint little house. Groene. The Groene Project. Is that like Groene? Anyway.
Gruen's Gruen.
Okay. So Brenda Groene and her family lived in a quaint little house about 15 kilometres outside the town of Coeur d'Alene in Idaho. And Coeur d'Alene is like the French version, Couer space D apostrophe ALENE. But I know it's pronounced Coeur d'Alene. They phonetically broke it down for me. Thank you. The home was fondly known as Wolf Lodge to the family and the locals. It wasn't anything fancy and was like an old schoolhouse. Didn't have the mod cons that we're accustomed to, such as washing machines, dryers, dishwashers, a standard oven. She used a propane stove to cook.
Jesus.
It's like something that you'd see on an Airbnb for a get back to the country style vacation where there's no Wi-Fi and all this shit, you know, that stuff. Not my dream home, but
What
one of
year was
those.
this?
So the year this happened was 2005. So they were living in this sort of shacky style house then. Anyway, they had neighbors, but none that were very close. Brenda had married Stephen in the late 80s. They had 5 children together: Vance, Jesse, Slade, Dylan, and finally Shasta, the only girl in the bunch. The couple divorced in 2001, and the 2 older children, Vance and Jesse, decided to live with their father, while the 3 youngest, who were 8, 4, and 3 at the time, stayed with their mama at Wolf Lodge. The family were happy out at Wolf Lodge. The kids had a big yard to play in. There was a pool and lots of lakes nearby. Friends and family would see Wolf Lodge as a everybody's welcome kind of home, and people would pop in for a drinky poos, hang out, you know, the regular stop on by kind of home, especially out in those areas.
Love that.
Not long after the divorce, Brenda sparks up a relationship with an old friend of hers, Mark. Mark grew up around the area, had a vibe that was like a Yosemite Sam type of person, you know, yeehaw, from Warner Brothers.
I know who you're talking. I'm just listening. Just
But
paying attention. I'm getting into the groove. The groove,
we're
man.
setting the scene.
Setting
The scene. The groove, yeah. The cool groove.
I said groovy before. I'm making a joke.
Good. Yeah, I love it. That's what I'm agreeing with it. Let's make groove happen. Groove is a thing.
Let's say it all night tomorrow night. This is so groovy.
Macy Gray is the epitome of groove, guys. What's
so
groove? Get with the program, you dumb bitch. I'm not telling you what groove is. You have to figure it out.
If you don't know what it is, then
it's not for you.
It's oh God, we're totally going to make this a thing, aren't we?
Yeah. It'll be featured in every podcast. So anyway, he's like a Yosemite Sam type of person, but was known as an all-round good guy. He looked after Brenda and the kids well. They dated for a few years before he ends up moving in with Brenda and the family. By the year 2005, it's all happy families at Wolf Lodge. Brenda, who's now 40 years old. Mark is 37, same age gap as Vinny and I, please. Slade is 13, same age gap as you and Tyler, please.
He planned that joke, people, you can tell.
It's in brackets in my
you know how he says it, how he delivers it, and then just wets himself after.
I was wetting myself when I typed it. I'm like, Dylan, who is 9, and Shasta is now 8. Interesting name, Shasta. Have you ever heard of it? Shasta. Yeah, neither. Growing up as the youngest sibling to 4 boys, you could imagine that Shasta quickly learned how to fend for herself and handle her brothers. But she was also spoiled. You know, she was the little princess. The family all looked after her, the only girl besides her mother, and she enjoyed being her mum's little shadow. On the morning of 16th of May 2005, Maria's birthday, one of their neighbours, Bob, heads towards the Groen's home to pay Slade for a lawn mowing job that Slade had done for him. When he arrived at the house...
The third oldest one.
Yeah, the 13-year-old. Mm-hmm. When he arrived at the house, he noticed the back door was open. He calls out to the family, but there's no response. He slowly makes his way indoors, and as he gets to the entryway, he notices that there's blood everywhere. It's covering the walls, the floor, everywhere. He freaks out and he calls 911, emergency services. They respond saying they'll have a deputy out there, and he goes, you're going to need more than one. The sheriff's arrive. The sheriff's office. The sheriff's office arrives within minutes of Bob's call. Besides the barking of the family dog, there was an eerie silence that filled the area, which was something that was very unusual for that home. The officers enter the home through the already open back door and see blood everywhere. As they make their way through the home, the deputies then spot 3 bodies on the floor, all dead. The place is secured and detectives are called in as it's declared a crime scene. The news of a triple murder in Coeur d'Alene was so incomprehensible that the detective, when he first got the call, thought it was a prank. However, when he arrived, he soon realised the severity of the situation. The 3 bodies had clearly been victims of an extremely brutal assault.
Oh, no.
So the first body, Brenda, the mother, her arms were bound behind her back with tape and zip ties, and she had duct tape covering her mouth. The injuries to her head were severe and clearly the cause of her death. Mark, the boyfriend, was bound the same way and bearing the same injuries, was laid with his feet next to Brenda's head. And then by Brenda's feet laid the body of her 13-year-old son, Slade, bound the same way and also had brutal trauma to his head. The deputy who responded to the call was familiar with the Groene family and he knew the victims, so he also noticed that the 2 youngest family members, Dylan and Shasta, were nowhere to be found. The home and immediate area are searched, but it turns up nothing. During the search, however, they stumble upon what they described as a small arsenal of guns that belonged to Brenda and Mark, though none seemed to be missing. And in fact, nothing was actually missing from the house. So they're like, what the fuck? This isn't a robbery gone wrong or anything like that. It seems targeted. Realizing they were in over their head, the police sheriff's department notified the Idaho State Police and the FBI. So as you could imagine, this case blows up on the media. And unfortunately, it's how the grandma, Brenda's mum, actually finds out that her daughter and grandchild are murdered through breaking news. Though they didn't know who the 3 bodies belonged to when she first saw the news, this was confirmed after she spoke to police. She just knew that there was a murder at Wolf Lodge. Then that's when they also learned about the 2 youngest grandchildren being missing. They weren't with the father. They went and checked with the father. They went with the father. They checked with friends, neighbours, anyone who might actually know the family, and nothing.
What about the older siblings?
So the older siblings, they lived with the dad.
So they weren't with the father or the older siblings?
They were, yeah. So, and they lived with the dad, so they weren't with them at all. So they quickly arranged for search parties to cover the area surrounding Wolf Lodge, hopeful that the kids were able to get away and run and hide during the attack. They searched woods, bodies of water, and again, no sign of the 2 little ones. During this time, the murder scene is also being investigated, and it's determined by the coroner that the victims had been dead for less than 24 hours when they were found. And the cause of death was bludgeoning and blunt force trauma to the head, later determined to be caused by a large framing hammer. Fears start creeping into people's heads that the children had been abducted.
And how old was the second youngest, the boy that was older than the little girl?
So the little girl at that stage was 8 and he was 9. Right. So they're only a year apart.
So it couldn't have been the kids, right? Because
well, they're so young.
They're so little. They
duct
couldn't
taped.
have. Yeah.
So I'm just pouring from my new wine pourer with a chill rod.
We'll wait.
It's a slow pour.
Take your time.
So back to the search. I think I've said that. Blah, blah, blah.
Got to the hammer part. The hammer part. They realised it was the hammer. That was the weapon. Or it appeared to be.
Yes, caused by a large framing hammer. So back to the search. Fears start creeping into people's heads that the children had been abducted. And with the house being so close to the interstate road thingy, if they had been taken, it would have been very difficult to track them down because they would have been straight on the highway.
Well, I hope they're somewhere okay.
So over the next few days, there's some big leads that come in that look like they could turn into possible suspects. A friend of Mark's owed Brenda and Mark money, and they had a fight. It's reported they had a fight the night of the murders, and that this guy left town the day after the murders. He had a criminal history, and they found his fingerprint at the scene.
Oh,
It all ends up just being coincidence.
he could have just
When
been
he found
visiting.
out, he turned himself in when he heard police were after him. And after his interrogation, he is cleared of being a suspect. And he used to go to the house all the time, which is why they had a fingerprint.
Criminal activity is different to murder.
Yeah. So, because of the brutality of the murders and the missing children, questions arose as to whether this was a crime of passion, and family members start to go under the police's microscope, particularly Daddy, aka Stephen. So, Stephen's a muso, he rode motorbikes and was known to have been associated with gang members.
Ooh.
Brenda broke it off with Stephen because of that lifestyle, and she wanted to focus on being a mum. And there's a lot of, as with a lot of,
But the other two kids went to live with him, but they were adult age, were they?
yes, yes. So they were older,
It was
much
their
older.
choice.
It was 13. Yeah. And you can't really ask her. Well, they do, a 8-year-old who you want to live with. And yeah, anyway. So she wanted to focus on being a mum. And as with a lot of couples that have children after the separation, the kids in custody are fuck me. And as with a lot of couples that have children, after the separation, the kids in custody arrangements had often led to arguments between Stephen and Brenda. So, was he involved, I hear you ask?
Was he involved, I ask?
Well, good question. The police also considered it a possibility. That, or that the murders were committed in retaliation for something by one of the gangs that he used to hang out with. They bring Steve in for questioning. He gets shirky, asking why they're wasting time with him when they should be out looking for his kids. He tells police that he was at Brenda's mother's house the night of the murders. There'd been some housing issues for Steve, so he and the two older kids ended up moving in with Brenda's mum, Darlene, at that time. So she's the grandma, so she's obviously letting her grandkids live with them. They polygraph him, he fails, and is now the number one suspect.
Ooh.
However, they had no physical or actual evidence stating it was him, so they have to let him go. Blood analysis has now come back, and it's determined that the blood found around the house, by the back door, and on the grass outside all belonged to one person, and that was Slade. So, but not the younger kids. So, as sad as that was,
dead, Slade.
Yeah, as sad as it was somewhat of a relief that the kids could still be alive. Also, the day after the failed polygraph test, Stephen called.
End this, and those children are dead. I'm going to kill you.
Stephen called for a press conference to plead his innocence and begged for the return of his two children, saying, and I quote, "They had nothing to do with any of this," which raised some eyebrows. People are like, any of what? And who are you talking to? However, again, it seemed like another lead that had so many red flags that just falls flat. Darlene confirms that Steve was at the house at that time, and he said he was at home with Darlene's the grandmother. Yep. Mm-hmm. And on the computer. And when they searched computer records, it confirms that he was on the computer that evening, as he said. So I say the Amber Alerts and news reports, all the kerfuffle around it continues in the search for the two kids. 40 days of searching, following tips, questioning everyone, turns up nothing. No indication where the kids were or who had murdered Brenda, Mark, and Slade. Fast forward to 2 July. So this all happened on the 16th of May. Fast forward to the 2nd of July. Picture it. You're a waitress at Denny's. You're about 4 hours into your shift and it's now 1:15 a.m. You see a man and a young girl walk in and sit down, and you swear to yourself, that girl looks familiar, but from where? Okay, so this is happening to Amber Dean. As she approached to greet them and take their order, Amber immediately sensed something was off. The young girl appeared dirty, her hair and clothes unwashed for quite some time. Amber's suspicions quickly zeroed in on the possibility that the girl was Shasta Groene.
Oh, God.
She tells herself, remain calm, get help. And she heads out the back and alerts her manager, who also thought the child looked like Shasta. Pursued.
From stuff that they saw on telly or because they knew of her?
from their telly and the news alerts, because this shit had been all over the news for 40 days. The hunt's still on for the Groene family killers and Shasta and Dylan. The manager promptly called 911 while Amber returned to the tables. Hoping the pair would stay put until the officers arrived, Amber offers the little girl a milkshake, suggesting various flavors until the girl settled on vanilla. Good choice, Stars. She also gave her crayons.
Chocolate all the way.
She also gave her crayons and a coloring book, noting how the girl sought the man's approval before starting to color or talk or anything like that. So she was like, would look at him for instruction or permission
Jesus.
before anything would happen. Amber recalled how the man was terse and didn't engage in conversation. She took her time making the milkshake, opting for an adult size instead of a kid's size in an attempt to try and stall them more. Amber, and actually, as I was typing this, I was like, actually, I just thought of this while typing these notes. Amber, Amber alert, Amber alert.
Oh, yeah, totes.
LOL. Anyways, Amber says that she could see the guy starts getting nervous and is looking at packing up to go to leave before even the milkshake gets there. But she gets up and she takes out a water or something and kind of blocks her way. And she's like, oh, the shake's on its way. Sit back down. It won't be too long. Rah, rah, rah. I swear to God, yada, yada. And he's like, oh, so when the police officers arrive, Amber then sneaks outside and discreetly speaks with them out of sight of the man and girl. She pointed out their location and described what she observed. The officers instructed to go back inside and bring the man his check. So re-entering the diner, Amber saw the man and the girl heading to the bathroom. The man hastily requested the check, clearly eager to leave. Amber quickly hands it over, noting the man's fast movements as if he couldn't get out of there quickly enough. By that time, the officers are already inside, making their way towards the man. So they take the man outside and ask Amber to stay with the girl. Amber asks the girl what her name is, to which she replies, Shasta Groene. Amber says she just held her when she found out. So they have one of the missing children, but where the fuck is Dylan, I hear you ask.
God. And if they've killed the 13-year-old.
But where is Dylan, I hear you ask?
Well, yeah, where the fuck is Dylan?
We'll get there, I promise.
I'm
Shasta
gonna
is
punch
taken.
you in the face.
Shasta is taken to the local hospital, the man into police custody. In the car park of Denny's, they find a red Jeep Cherokee that had been reported as stolen, and they determined pretty quickly from that, and when they searched the man, this man is 40-year-old Joseph Duncan. And when they search his driver's license...
Who the fuck is Joseph Duncan, please?
we'll get there. And when they search his driver's license, they find a very long history of criminal behaviour. Joseph Edwin Duncan III.
So he wasn't the mate that they thought that had the criminal history.
Someone completely different. Joseph Edward Duncan III grew up in a strict religious household and faced frequent discipline. His criminal behaviour started early. At the age of 15, he raped a 9-year-old boy at gunpoint.
Oh my God.
A year later, he was caught driving a stolen vehicle.
Dylan. Is Dylan okay?
And sent to Dislin's Boys Ranch for rehabilitation. During therapy, Duncan admitted to sexually assaulting multiple boys. In 1980, Duncan's crimes escalated. Sorry. Wine gives me gas. In 1980, Duncan's crimes escalated, where he stole guns from a neighbour and kidnapped a 14-year-old boy, also sexually assaulting him at gunpoint. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison. After serving 14 years, he was paroled in 1994. I know. But was arrested again in 1997 for violating parole. He completed his sentence and was released in 2000 for good behaviour. For fuck's sake. Moving to Fargo, North Dakota, he studied computer science and tried to appear reformed, but police still suspected him whenever there were unsolved crimes. So they had him on, what did I say?
Suspected him.
Suspected him. Listen, pursue.
You said suspected him.
They suspected him.
Antidote.
Anecdote. Oh, yeah, anecdote. Pursue.
My health, your health.
My health.
Your health.
I have.
I have.
So yeah, so we're still on the police radar. They'd still harass him every now and then, and that annoyed Duncan. That really annoyed him. You know, he's done computer science. He's reformed. He got
Get
out
over
on good
yourself,
behavior.
Duncan.
So he decided then and there that if they're going to continue to treat him like a criminal, do you know what? I'm going to act as one.
This is in 2004.
So that's so kooky you say that, because this was actually 2000. He gets let out and then that happens. But then in mid 2004, Duncan approaches a group of young boys at a park in Minnesota. Again, he molests two of the boys and is caught. He's convicted in 2005. A judge sets his bail at $15,000.
Too many times, man. Too many times. Never
Exactly.
to be released.
Never to be cured.
One time is too many times.
That's right. Exactly.
Fucking hell.
So the judge sets bail at $15,000, and a dear old friend of Duncan's helps him post it. And what does Duncan do? Skips town. He now has a federal warrant out for his arrest. Less than a month after he skips town, the massacre at Wolf Lodge occurs. Duncan was taken to the police station for questioning when they've caught him now at Denny's. Investigators were eager to find out if Dylan was nearby, but Duncan immediately invoked his right to an attorney and refused to answer any further questions.
Beat him. Beat the shit out of him.
I want to see blood.
Torture. Break his fingers and his kneecaps.
Cut off his fingers 1 inch at a time. Reluctantly
Twisted fuck you up.
Well, I surely talk it a bit.
I always say, Tyler always gives me shit because whenever I'm watching movies when bad guys are in, I'm like, shoot him in the knees. Yeah. Just shooting him dead is not good enough. Get both knees first and make him lay there for ages.
Make him feel the pain they've given everyone else. Exactly. So he's not answering questions. So reluctantly, detectives know the only way they're going to get information is that they have to talk to Shasta as soon as possible, hoping that she might be able to provide clues about her brother's whereabouts.
Poor little Shasta.
Back at the hospital, Shasta is doing okay. Physically, she doesn't have any significant injuries. Detectives start to gently ask her questions. Where the fuck's your brother, Shasta? They start to gently ask her questions if she knew where her brother was. And she then proceeds to tell the detectives what happened on the night of the murders and everything that followed. Are you ready?
Oh, no, I don't think I am ready.
Okay, we're going there. Let me just get a pube or something out of my mouth. An eyelash. You know when you get those weird little hairs and you're like...
It's pube. I don't want to know, man. Vinny?
Whose pube did you say? Probably mine. Oh, God.
Face is too close to your ass again.
Just like to have a little sniff when I fart. You know? Okay, you ready?
Yes, I guess I have to be.
You're going to need a full glass of wine for this. Allow me to top up mine from this fucking incredible slow pour. It's like the end of a piss.
That's way too impatient for that. Fuck that shit.
Okay. So that night, Shasta recalls her and Dylan being woken up by her mum, who's crying. The kids are confused, and she originally thought that they were being called to go to school. She's like, Mum, is it time for school? Bless her. Brenda tells them that there is someone in the house, and he didn't want the family there. So they follow their mum into the living room where both Slade and Mark are laying on the floor, bound with duct tape and zip ties. And a man is dressed in black, with a mask and night vision goggles on, standing there holding a shotgun, who tells Brenda and the kids to get on the floor. Shasta described how she lay face down as the man tied her wrists behind her back. Realizing something was very wrong, she heard the man instruct everyone to keep their heads down. There were sounds of movement, followed by silence and then footsteps again. The man tapped her shoulder, signaling her to stay quiet, putting his fingers to his lips, then picks her up and carries her outside, laying there next to Dylan. So he's already picked up Dylan, taken Dylan outside out of the house. Now he's come in and got Shasta and put her there next to him. So they're there laying on the grass outside alone for a while, and they're telling each other how they're scared. I'm scared. Suddenly they hear a loud thump come from inside the house, and Shasta heard Mark shout out in pain, the boyfriend, mum's boyfriend. She lifts her head and looks around, and she sees her. And she lifts her head, and as she turns around, she sees her brother Slade running out of the house, covered in blood.
Oh my God.
He was able to get out of his ankle bindings, but his wrists were still bound together. And as he's running around, the man came out of the house after him, and he hits Slade over and over again with the hammer until he collapses on the ground.
Oh, poor
Shasta,
Slade.
I know, Shasta says that her and Slade stare into each other's eyes until he just slumped over, which is just fucking horrific. So they're just
Kid's never gonna recover.
And like, imagine, like, could you just imagine? Like, I know what shit's happening to Shasta and what she's going, but can you imagine what's going through poor fucking Slade's mind at the moment too? He's looking at his fucking 8-year-old sister, his 9-year-old brother. He knows what's happening to him. He's just been attacked and thinking, what is going on? Just staring in his sister's eyes. The man then cuts the zip ties from Dylan and Shasta and leads them to the red Jeep. So from the blood
So
patterns,
Brenda and Mark were already dead then.
by that stage, he's fucking bludgeoned them.
And
So
Slade managed to get away, but he caught him.
Caught him. And Shasta thought he died there and then on the lawn. But from the blood patterns, it seems that Slade then made his way back into the house where his mother was, laid down next to her while he died. I know. It's terrible, isn't it?
Poor little darling.
So the man then drives to the two kids to Lolo Forest in Montana, telling the kids that no one will be able to see or hear them where they are. He then tells them his name is Joe, but the kids are to call him Dad, Daddy, or Jet, and that Jazzy Jet was the name his prison husband gave to him. He then shoots a tree with a shotgun and tells the kids that's what will happen to them if they try to escape.
Tyler, I hope you're not listening. Hope you turned back before you got to this part.
He then tells them that their family is still alive and he would let them go back to them if they did what he said, when clearly they're not, they're dead. He then gets them to recite the Lord's Prayer while he molests them both.
Oh.
He would then go between saying he was there because God told him to be there, but then he'd go on saying that he was also the devil. The kids chat together when they can about how scared they are, promising each other they're going to get out alive. Days turn into weeks. The physical and sexual abuse continues, and it gets worse and it worsens as days go on. And he also started filming what he was doing to them.
Dylan's dead, isn't he?
When he goes to get supplies, he would chain the two of them up to a tree, and so they couldn't escape. And he would also start playing a game with the kids. So a squirrel used to come into their camp during their time there, and he told them that if any one of them caught the squirrel, he would take them home. So one day they were there, and the squirrel comes in, and Dylan is able to catch it. So Dylan catches the squirrel and says, "Hey, I've caught it, rah, rah, rah." Duncan then gets up, gets the kids to pack their belongings, leading them to believe he was taking them home. The kids hug, excited, and they start to walk off hand in hand. That's when Shasta hears a loud bang and feels her brother's grip loosen as he falls to the ground. She looks down and sees he's been shot in the abdomen, and Dylan's laying on the ground trying to hold his organs inside. Duncan then walks over and shoots him again in the head, killing him instantly.
Oh my God.
He then forces Shasta to help him load Dylan's body and some of Dylan's belongings onto a tarp. They then roll it up and set it on fire. He then turns to Shasta and he says to her, he asks her how she wants to die, giving her the options of either being shot or being strangled. Shasta, who is 8 years old, remember, tells police that she felt a little voice inside her head guiding her into what to say, so she selects being strangled, as it wouldn't be as sudden as being shot, and she could potentially get away to try and talk him out of it. He starts to strangle her, and everything turns white, she says. And then she says, "Please don't, Jet." And he loosens his grip and starts crying, believing the child really cared for him. She called him by his old prison name. From that point, she starts forming a plan in her head about gaining his trust. Can you believe this? Like an 8-year-old. After everything she's endured as well, acting like she enjoyed being with him, surviving. He'd mentioned her home, and she'd say that she didn't want to go back home, and she wanted to stay with him. Look what happened when they thought, and sorry, he would mentioned to her about going home, and she'd say she didn't want to go home. She wanted to stay with him. And when you look at what happened when they thought they were going home the last time, right? So she's a very clever girl.
Very smart.
Yeah, when he'd get upset, she'd reassure him that they were friends, and so he slowly grows attached to her. One day, he tells her that he's basically on the run, and if he got caught, he'd be going away for a very long time, and how he had the plan to find young children. He was searching, and the kids were either too old or lived somewhere where it would have been too difficult to get them. Giving up one day, and on his way back to home, which I'm guessing was the camp, he drove past Wolf Lodge, and that's when he says he saw Shasta and Dylan playing in the pool.
Oh my God.
After that day, he stalked their house for several days, making a plan on how he could get Shasta and Dylan. How fucking gross. He asks her if she wants to be his daughter forever and stay with him, and he wanted her to meet his family. She agrees, and she agrees based on one condition, that on their way to meet his family, which I think was in Washington, she just wants him to drive through her hometown of Coeur d'Alene so she can show him where she grew up, show him the school she went to, her friends' houses, etc. He agrees, and as they drive off, they go back through Coeur d'Alene. They first stop at a convenience store, and you can see the CCTV footage of this, and it's creepy as fuck. So he's not like got her restrained or holding her hand or anything. She's just walking with him side by side. You can see as she's walking down the aisle, she's staring at every adult, hoping that someone would recognize her.
Oh.
No one did. So I'm guessing she didn't want to go, help me, rah, rah, not knowing what he would do, but was hoping someone would see her.
Yeah.
And go,
but
what the fuck?
also, people don't assume or look closely enough when a kid's not restrained or anything. Do you know what I mean? If she's in there acting normal
and
they're not
dirty and all
gonna
that,
think
they're
of
probably
anything.
thinking, they're probably thinking like, who's this little hobo?
Luckily, Amber had her head screwed on.
Amber was all over it. And when you if you ever watch this episode, and it's called the Groene Family Massacre, Amber, you're just like, you fucking legend. They interview her, she's telling the story, and just like, wow. It goes for 2 parts. It's like a 2-hour special. So they see her at the convenience store. She's at the convenience store. You see the CCTV footage, and then you see her getting into the car willingly. Like he walks around to his side, she goes to her side, gets in the car, like it's all normal. Then a couple of hours later, they end up at the Denny's where she's rescued. She's also able to direct police to the campsite in the Lolo forest, amazingly, where they find the charred remains of Dylan. Shasta reveals how he confesses to her that he is responsible for a lot of crimes in other states that he was never caught for. So this just opens up this huge fucking, what do you call it? A rabbit hole, a wormhole, whatever. Police investigate this with the other state police. There were crimes that matched his MO. So some unsolved crimes they had where people were duct taped, where people were fucking zip-tied.
So he killed a lot of other people as well, not just the molestering of the boys.
Yes, that he got caught for. So basically, and this goes into greater detail, but just to wrap it up, basically over the years, there were other cold cases about 3 other children who were abducted, abused, and killed. Sketches they had of the suspect matched Duncan's appearance. Bodies were bound the same way, and he would also give them info about the cases when he was being questioned. So the cold cases were not so cold anymore. He pleads guilty to the Groene family murders and kidnapping, and also to the other murders in 2008. 12 jurors were chosen to decide whether he would get life or the death penalty.
Please say death penalty.
After what was a pretty traumatizing hearing featuring videos that Duncan had made with Shasta and all that as well. So these jury people had to watch these. I think sometimes that's just a bit too much.
The abuse and
Yeah,
everything.
the videos, because that's evidence. Recordings from police during the interviews, etc. They decide that Duncan is going to get the death penalty.
Yes.
However, Duncan dies while he's on death row in
Ugh,
March 2021 at 58 years old from brain cancer.
sucked in. Hope
Yeah,
it hurt.
it would have been a painful death, I imagine. I don't think they would have been too forthcoming with painkillers. You'd hope not,
Oh
anyway.
no, they can't be inhumane.
Well, they could,
They have to. He
bump
would
him
have been in fucking
accidentally.
infirmary the whole time on fucking morphine and shit. He should have just been able
They
to
might have
let his
forgotten to give
brain
it to him for an
rot.
hour in between.
I would have forgotten if I was his
Yeah.
nurse.
Shasta reveals that when she heard this news 16 years after the incident, she finally felt free. When Shasta returned to Coeur d'Alene, she lived with her father. Though glad to be home, she struggled to process a traumatic experience. She fell into drug and alcohol abuse and also had run ins with the police. Despite these challenges, Shasta found the strength to turn her life around. Now she lives in Boise, Idaho, with her husband and their 5 sons. She works as a supervising housekeeper at a hotel and shares her story to support other victims. And that, my dear stupid bitch, is the Groene Family Massacre and my last 2C for the season. Please.
Well, that was truly fucking awful. My heart hurts.
He just looked at me with like such disappointment. Well, that was truly fucking awful, Sean. But it wasn't as.
Oh, my heart.
Yeah, fucking. It's absolutely heartbreaking, the whole fucking thing. It's nice that she survived, and it's amazing the journey she had and how she was able to keep herself alive at 8 years old. And she wanted, I don't know, I can't remember the specifics around how they ended up at the Denny's, but I'm pretty sure it's her thinking and then him thinking, oh, it's 1:15 in the morning, we should be fine. But thank God that chick had her head about her.
Yeah.
Amber.
And what kids out at 1:15 in the morning too?
Totally looking like that. And then she
Yeah.
just knew it was her.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't one of the worst, right?
It's up there.
But there's sort of like, even though as tragic it is, there's sort of not a feel good moment to it, like a triumphant moment for poor Shasta, but poor baby Dylan.
Oh, oh,
I know.
oh,
And
oh.
just slayed. And just the mother and the boyfriend just thinking, who the fuck is this guy?
It's so rotten. I feel so sad.
So I knew I had to do it when I watched the episode. I was like, oh, because of the twists and turns it goes on. And when you see the dad too, obviously I had to condense that shit down. But when you see their dad doing the police fucking, what do you call it, press conference, you're like, it's definitely him.
And
like, why is he saying
he might
this?
have thought as well that something he'd done in his past or something
Had
he'd,
come up.
played up about had come back on him. So he was maybe saying to all the people that knew him out there, guys, come on.
They're 2 kids. They got
Whatever
nothing to do
you've
with
done,
this.
whoever it is who's fucking with me, let my kids go.
Yeah. Yeah, fucking sad, hey? Poor fucking Slade too. All right, come on, you lighten us up with your
I have no words.
feel good murder.
I have no words.
All right, you go.
Just change. Okay.
Lighten the mood, will you?
So I was trying to come up with a true crime story this week. And you know how hard it is as well, because if you always come up with really, really good ones, but sometimes I research and research and research something like research. And I just can't find something that's sensational enough to fill an episode as well as, have enough information out there.
Yeah.
But because you watch true crime all the time,
constantly,
then it's a lot easier for you. Anyway, so I was trying to come up with something. Tyler and I were talking about different things. Anyway, all of a sudden when he was trying to Google something to think of to suggest to me, a movie popped into my head that I watched when I was a kid. And we're going to talk about this a little bit. And I've got a picture for you that I want to see if it jogs any memories for you, but we'll get to that.
And it's funny because you mentioned what you were doing to me, which we don't really do. And when you said it, I was like, when I saw the message come through, I was like, is she talking about pop culture? What is she talking about?
Don't give away the title that I sent you.
I will not.
And I always talk about the messed up stuff that my mum used to make me watch when I was younger, right?
Yes.
Always, always, always. Just, hey, why don't you sit on the couch and just watch this show with me just for 5 minutes? No, I hate watching your shit, Mum. It's always twisted and messed up. Come on, just
You
sit
like
for
fava
5 minutes.
beans?
Anyway, how was school? Play.
I love that.
So I'm also going to read parts of the interviews transcripts from the media and authorities throughout because it gives context to what the Stallings were dealing with. So the Stallings are the people in the story. Are you ready?
It's not Clarice Starling, is it?
No.
No.
Starling as in Stallings, not with an R.
Oh, so stalling.
Stallings. Yeah, stalling. Starling, Stallings. You say Stallings. I say Stallings. You say Starlings. There's no R in there, so come on.
Yeah.
On July 9th, 1989, in St. Louis,
1989.
in Missouri, a young mother urgently took her critically ill baby, 3-month-old Ryan Stallings, to the hospital. The Stallings lived in Jefferson County, where Patty, the mother, was a convenience store clerk in the mid-1980s. David Stallings frequently came into her store and they began to date in 1986. They got married in 1988 and their first son, Ryan, was born in April 1989. Since birth, Ryan had suffered from chronic gastric distress. On that day, in July 1989, his breathing had become laboured and he was vomiting uncontrollably. According to his father, David, Ryan was immediately admitted to the paediatric intensive care unit. It was just a shock to see a little baby incapacitated the way he was, he said in an interview after the ordeal. It was to the point where they said, well, they don't know how long he's going to be here. We don't know what's wrong with him yet, so you may as well just go to the waiting room and stay out there until we can tell you what's wrong.
You may as well.
What did I say?
Yeah, no, that's what they said, isn't it?
Yeah.
You might as well, you may as well, yeah. It's
Yeah.
like, great, okay,
Yeah.
cool, thanks.
Yeah, they
We'll just
had
grab
no
a
clue.
sandwich.
They had no clue. David and Patty Stallings rented a hospital room to stay close to their son, who was 3 months old. After 3 agonizing days, they learned that Ryan would recover, but the diagnosis was shocking. Ryan had been poisoned. Patty Stallings was frustrated that authorities immediately suspected her.
Understandable.
They were very polite yet suspicious. They would not allow us to see Ryan alone, Patty reported later. There would have to be 2 nurses or a doctor present. We were never allowed at his bedside alone. That bothered me, but I still didn't understand because I wasn't looking at it the way they were, I guess.
Yeah.
The same day, police began investigating.
Which, I mean, like, from their point of view, you understand why they're trying to protect the child, the nurse staff or the police and all that stuff. From her point of view, you totally get it. And I don't know the outcome of this. If she's innocent, she's like, what the fuck, man? It's my baby.
And you know what? You're totally right. But because I watched the TV movie in 1993, I didn't understand how they could suspect this poor, distressed mother. But you're right. You're absolutely right.
Well, we hadn't done the podcast by then. Now everyone's a suspect.
The same day, police began investigating. According to Patty, detectives interviewed her husband separately. We were split up and talked to by detectives. They immediately started asking me, is there a problem at home? Are you and David fighting? They were saying that they knew that the baby had been poisoned by either me or my husband. It infuriated me, and I was devastated. I was blown away. Ryan was my world. He was perfect.
And was it her only child?
Yes. Her first only child, 3 months old.
Yeah, first child, yeah.
So Ryan's condition improved, and after 12 days, he was released from the hospital, but not to his parents' custody. Patty and David's contact with Ryan was severely restricted to a 1-hour visit each week on Thursdays.
Each week.
I know. She says, I just could not wait till Thursday. I would tell everybody over and over and over how last Thursday went. This was my life.
Oh God, this is going to make me angry. This story.
And it's funny because what you're saying is absolutely right. And I thought about it as I was writing these comments, but again, I'll put some context around the fact that I saw the movie when I was younger. I thought it was really crazy that we hear again and again of children who are in dangerous situations being released back into their homes. But you know, they put her immediately into foster care. They put Ryan immediately into foster care 1 day a week. But I guess they honestly believed that the child was being poisoned by one of the parents.
And especially if when he's come in, they're treating him and he's getting better. They must be thinking they're not getting poisoned anymore. So,
but imagine having your baby taken away at 3 months old and seeing them once a week for an hour a week.
Look, I know this is completely a different ballpark, but it's
You're talking about the cats, aren't you? Missing the cats.
Well, when we first got the cats, and then we had them about 2 days, and we noticed Stripey was quite sick. This one here, and she had like a snooze, and she had a bump on her belly. And we took him back to RSPCA, and they had cat flu. And Stripey had a hernia from when they'd done her taking out her bits. Hernia popping through. We were ringing up every day for the week that they had them. How are they now? Can we get them now? How are they now? How are they now? So I could imagine for a baby, a human baby, it must be quite difficult.
Very distressing.
For them.
So the visits continued for 5 weeks. During the 6th visit, Patty was briefly left alone with Ryan. Now, in the movie, for whatever reason, I remember this vividly. It's insane that this movie came out in 1993 and I remember it all.
It affected you, obviously.
So I would have been 13 at the time. And I'm going to this is where the part where I'm going to show you the cover of the movie and tell me if it looks familiar.
Okay.
I'm going to have to share my screen. Hold on.
We'll use this in the promos too.
Oh, you've host disabled participating, so I can't do it.
That's just from previous experience with you.
Oh, I never try to share. If anything, I'm always like, you share, bitch.
There you go.
Okay, hold on. I now I've got to move it.
I have pussy hair all over my long johns.
Oh, what's happening?
The name sounds familiar.
Does that not look familiar to you? Do you not remember going into the video shop and seeing this video cover?
Is that my future husband?
Guess who it is?
That's the guy from SVU, isn't it?
It is totally Christopher Maloney.
That's right. Oh, such a daddy.
Yeah. And look how young, baby. Yeah. Tiny baby. But do you ever remember this at the video shop? As soon as I found it, I was like, oh my God, I totally remember walking to the video shop all the time and seeing a row of them.
Yeah, it does look very familiar.
But it
Christopher Maloney, swoon.
It was a TV movie. But back in the day, remember, everything, it was a TV movie, went to VHS.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I showed you the cover of the movie, and obviously you can only really see it if it's on YouTube. Could you see if I shared it on YouTube?
YouTube?
When we do the YouTube videos?
Oh, yeah.
If I shared a picture during our filming, would you be able to see that? The shared screen? Okay, good. Okay. So only if you're watching from YouTube will you see the picture that I shared.
I have to do all the episodes from this season. Like usually I'd sort of upload them onto YouTube and get all that happening and schedule a date. I haven't done any of that. I'll have to do that.
Jeez, get your shit together, mate.
I know, sorry. My bad.
But as I said, like it looks familiar, right? And I remember walking into the video shop and seeing that on the cover. And as soon as I saw it, this popped into my head and I started researching, I was like, oh my God, I remember that cover so much.
Yeah.
Did not know it was Christopher Maloney though until I was researching. I was like, whoa, the dude off SUV.
Yeah.
SVU. SVU. Anywho, so.
He probably has an SUV though.
Probably does. Everybody does. So I said before, the visits continued for 5 weeks. During the 6th visit, Patty was briefly left alone with Ryan. 3 days later, Ryan suffered another severe attack of vomiting and was rushed back to the hospital.
Hang on.
Again,
So she's left alone with him for a little bit.
yes. So
And then how long after that is he rushed back to hospital?
3 days.
Oh, God. So they're going to blame her again.
3 days later, Ryan suffered another severe attack of vomiting and was rushed back to the hospital. Again, the diagnosis was poisoning. Authorities came to Patty's house with an arrest warrant. We were getting out of the car and they said, "Stop right there." I turned around and I was like, "Come on into the house." They said, "You're not allowed to go into the house." They immediately slapped handcuffs on me and said, "You're under arrest for assault." Now, in the movie, again, for whatever reason, I remember this vividly. The baby is crying. So I remember the last visitation that she went, the baby is crying and she wants to feed it from a bottle she had already prepared in her bag.
Right.
And there isn't anyone around. And they make it look like she feeds the baby the bottle, but it's alleged that she fed the baby, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they make it look like she's scrambling around while she's left alone and she sneakily feeds the baby, this tiny little baby, because like at 3 months, well, he was 5 months by that point nearly. But at 5 months old, they're still like on those tiny little bottles as well.
Yeah.
So she's arrested and charged with assault. While she's in jail, Ryan's condition worsens and he was placed on life support. David Stallings, the husband, was devastated. He says, "The doctors came up and tell me that they have a feeling that Ryan's not going to make it and that maybe I should contact a minister and have him baptized. I tried to get Patty up there and all I got from the judge was, no, absolutely not. I'm not going to let a baby killer up there." I said, "She did not kill this baby." When they finally came back to me and told me that we need to know if we can turn him off, I told them, "Go ahead and shut the machine down." But I wanted to be in there with him. So for 3 hours, I sat there with him in my arms, knowing that Patty couldn't be there, watching this meter on the machine go down each time his heart would beat.
And that, I mean, they make it sound so, I told him to shut it off. Like they make it sound brutal from his point, but it's quite nice that he is standing by her knowing that, no, she didn't do this. When all signs are pointing to her. Oh, it could be.
100%. And also, like, imagine being there. This is the new baby. And like you think, right, when you have a baby, 3 months in, it's early stages. And I'm not putting any shit on the dads. But they've only known this little person for 3 months, whereas the mum's carried the baby for 9 months.
Yeah. There's
then
definitely more of a connection.
Looking over after the baby for 3 months consistent. And dads always help, like, you know, I know many dads who are really, really involved.
Well,
but
actually,
still, it's
when
3
you think
months
about
you've known this person.
Yes, and back in the 80s, and even the early 90s, and there was a study that came out recently, how they said 90% of men in the 80s, 90s, or maybe 70s, 80s never changed a nappy.
Totally.
And now it's 25% of men never changed a nappy. So it would have definitely been the mother's
0%.
It should totally be 0%, unless they've got no arms.
But yeah, so this poor dude has only known this tiny, tiny little baby for 3 months. They're just telling him that they're going to turn off life support and he's going to die. His wife's not there. He knows his wife's going to be devastated because she's not there and the baby's about to die. And he just has to sit there without his wife to support him, hold the baby as the baby just slowly fades and dies. How messed up is that?
Yeah.
So on September 7th, 1989, Ryan Stallings died. He was not yet 6 months old. Patty was now charged with first-degree murder and held without bail, unable to attend Ryan's funeral.
So she gets without bail, but old mate gets fucking 15K for his third fucking offense.
I know, right? A few weeks later, Patty discovered she was pregnant again.
God.
6 months, so she's in jail. 6 months later, David Stallings Jr. was born. Even though David Sr., the husband, was not a suspect, he was not allowed to take his son home. So she had the baby in prison. They took the baby off her, put it into foster care.
Her baby's fucked up.
Just died.
He's not even a suspect and he doesn't even get his fucking kid.
I know, it's fucked. So the baby was placed in foster care, which ultimately helped reveal the truth.
Oh, okay. Well, then
you'd have no idea what's going to happen, do you?
No. But sometimes it's nice to know that fate.
Someone was looking out for her. Well,
yeah,
they ruined her life, but, took her baby from her. But someone was like, hoping that, things would come out. When David Stallings Jr. was 2 weeks old, he began to show symptoms identical to Ryan's. This time, the diagnosis was different. David Jr. had a rare genetic disorder called MMA, which produces chemical byproducts similar to antifreeze, an independent medical expert explained. It would be very simple to confuse the diagnosis of MMA with multiple poisonings because the symptoms are very similar. But more importantly than that, MMA and other similar disorders are very rare, and the majority of doctors either will never have seen a case, or if they have seen a case, didn't know that they saw it and actually confused it.
Mm.
So the poison that they thought Ryan had died of was antifreeze. That green stuff that you put in your car, and I think they use it like for snow and stuff, and
they do use it in the production of like illegal alcohol and shit like that.
Yes, that like fluoro green colored stuff, right? So that's what they thought he was poisoned with. While prosecutors evaluated the new medical evidence, Patty was released from jail, though she was still denied visitation with her newborn son. I thought it was over. As far as the nightmare of being accused of hurting Ryan, I was positive because even my lawyer said it was over. There was no way that they could not see the truth right in front of their eyes, that they had a genetic disorder.
Column A, column B, same deal.
Yet, local officials continued to pursue.
There's no H, you dumb bitch. It's not French.
Maybe I'm a little bit French, okay?
Oui. Croissant.
Bonjour.
You play.
Mademoiselle.
Je ne peux que c'est quoi. Je ne sais pourquoi.
Anyway, let's be serious. Yet local officials continued to pursue Ryan's case, arguing that Ryan had not died from MMA. They cited 4 expert witnesses to the judge who refused to allow the diagnosis of David Jr. to be presented to the jury.
What a load of fucking cock. What state was this?
This was St. Louis, Missouri.
Missouri.
But I had to go backwards in my notes and now I've lost it. Okay. So, prosecuting attorney George McElroy explained, "We were concerned that if it came out that David Jr., or Ryan for that matter, had this methylmalonic acidosis, unless it could be shown that he actually died of that or it was some kind of contributing factor to his death, we believe that would not be relevant and in fact might cause the jury to go off on a wild goose chase and make a decision based on something that's really not relevant." Fuck you, dickhead.
It's completely relevant, you dumb fuck. Just because you fucked up and you don't want your name to be tarnished, you fucking are trying to, nah, what I said was right.
I know, it's crazy, right? So without the medical testimony, the case against Patty seemed solid. The prosecution focused on the events of Thursday, August 31, 1989, during Patty and David's 6th visit with Ryan. Patty was alone with Ryan for a few minutes. And I told you in the movie, they show it and she's got this little bottle and no one's in there watching her, just for a very brief second. They're distracted.
They traumatize
her. She gives him the bottle and then they come in and they're like, oh, we've left her alone. And a nurse is like looking, oh, she's got a bottle, what the fuck? But they don't really do anything about it until 3 days later and then she gets arrested.
That's a shitty timing, isn't it, really?
So what the prosecution says is that during that time, she did actually feed the child a bottle. The child again got the same symptoms it had before, came back into the hospital, was diagnosed with ethylene glycol poisoning, antifreeze. But the state believes, and certainly circumstantial evidence suggests, that she slipped ethylene glycol or antifreeze into the bottle during that feeding.
So, yeah, they failed to recognize that he had the same symptoms as his younger brother, who was going through the same shit, yada, yada, yada. That's
Exactly.
just bullshit. That's just unfair.
I know. However, David Stallings, the dad, disagreed. That's incorrect. What happened was I walked back to the cubbyhole where Patty was with Ryan. He started getting a little cranky. So I reached into the bag, took the bottle out, and started feeding him. I saw the bottle. I did not see any discoloration in the bottle whatsoever. There was nothing done to that bottle. Absolutely nothing.
Good on him.
But despite this, the jury sided with the prosecution. And on March 4th, 1991, Patty Stallings was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Her visits with her son were limited to 1 hour weekly. David Sr. was also limited to weekly visits.
That's bullshit.
I cannot see how they can live with themselves, this is David Sr., knowing that they sent an innocent woman to the jail for the rest of her life for something that she didn't do. If Ryan would have been correctly diagnosed with MMA, none of this would have happened.
And
None
you
of
know,
these series of events.
sorry.
No,
You know, her life in jail as a baby killer would have been completely fucking hell.
Yeah, totally.
An innocent baby killer, I'm assuming.
It's so fucked up. Also, her baby died
Yeah.
at less than 5 months old.
And she's given
She
another-
wasn't there when he died. She wasn't there at the funeral. She gave birth to a new baby, and they took the baby away from her immediately, and she was
And the
allowed to see
father.
it 1 hour.
She doesn't even know the baby's safe with the dad.
Like, this poor family's life has just been turned upside down.
God, I hope there's some good settlement that comes out of this.
So none of these series of events in the last 2 years would have happened. It all depended on whether he was correctly diagnosed, which he was not. So now what they're saying is, if they had diagnosed Ryan correctly in the first place, they would have known what they were dealing with. They would have known
Saved his life.
Yes, exactly. But then the previous professors had looked at it and said, it's so uncommon. It's like, such a rare condition that people wouldn't even know. Experienced doctors wouldn't even know what they're looking at. But that's no excuse.
Yeah. And I mean, and I get that to some point, but that's, as you said, no excuse to fuck over this whole family.
In May 1990, defense attorney Eric Rathbone obtained copies of notes determined to have been written by Assistant Prosecutor John S. Applebaum. The notes indicate that the doctor who pronounced Ryan dead had considered the possibility of an MMA diagnosis, but also that he had not tested Ryan for it at the time. So his notes indicated that he thought, it could be this, but he didn't test him. A woman's life is at stake. Like a child's life has already, ended.
Gone.
After the discovery of the note, prosecutors said that they believed that there were important differences between ethylene glycol and propylene glycol, and said that even if Ryan had MMA, they thought that he had also been poisoned. So they're mixing up two different types of material that would be in his body. So something that would be present because of an MMA diagnosis, and something that would be present because of poisoning, which is exactly what they did in the beginning. They mixed up the two things.
Yeah.
So you're going to love this bit.
Oh, God.
The Stallings case was featured on the Unsolved Mysteries television program. And biochemist William Skye of St. Louis University saw the episode. He agreed to test Ryan's blood and gave it to James Schumacher, MD, PhD, director of the metabolic screening lab at St. Louis University. So metabolic is all about genes and biology.
So what, they still had the dead baby's blood?
Yeah, so he
and no one else tested that.
He was a professor. No, they had tested it, but they found traces of what they thought was ethylene
Antifreeze.
glycol, which is antifreeze, and propylene glycol is the chemical that's produced from MMA, but they're very similar chemical makeup.
So they couldn't use Ryan's blood tested against his brother's blood, see that there was.
It was 89 too.
Still.
It wasn't now. So Shoemaker immediately confirmed that Ryan had MMA. But remember, they said that they were pretty sure in the prosecution that he did have MMA, but they still thought he was poisoned.
So fucking
and that's
ridiculous.
how they were allowed to exclude the evidence that he had MMA. Confirm that, yeah. However, ethylene glycol is not a human metabolite, even in cases of MMA. And Stallings went to trial with no explanation linking MMA to ethylene glycol, which is the one that's in antifreeze. Much later, after the case was featured on Unsolved Mysteries, Shoemaker asked prosecutor George McElroy for the methods that had been used to measure the ethylene glycol in Ryan's blood, and McElroy supplied that information. When the method was used on blood from Ryan and David Jr., it was seen that priaponic acid, which is produced in MMA, caused a result that careless observers might mistake for ethylene glycol. So they mixed up the compositions. Shoemaker then sent samples of propionate spiked blood to several laboratories who tested it with the same methods used in the Stallings case. Some of the laboratories came to the incorrect conclusion that the blood reflected the ethylene glycol poisoning, antifreeze. So even when they sent it to labs where people are educated in testing samples, they still mixed up because they're very similar compositions. Only an expert, I guess, would really know the difference.
I know, but like you don't have to be. I mean, you need to be somewhat
reasonable
of an
doubt,
expert.
you dumb fucks.
But it's also you have to be an expert, but not that much of an expert when you can see that one child's got it and it's super close to the other thing
It's
that
also
the other
super
child
rare,
that the other child
genetic.
died of. There's a bit of a fucking, inkling that maybe she didn't.
At Sly and Shoemaker's request, Piero Ronaldo of Yale University also looked at the case and concluded that Ryan had died of MMA. His testimony helped to convince McElroy that Ryan might not have been poisoned. So in the movie, and I'm not sure how true this is, and again, I still can't believe that I remember this because I haven't rewatched the movie since 93.
It's amazing what sticks with you, isn't it?
They basically compare how much of the ethylene glycol antifreeze was in baby Ryan's bloodstream. And they start bringing in, like to the courtroom, like giant, when they're trying to get them to retry the case, they start bringing in giant, massive liter bottles of that green, like liquid of antifreeze into the court, stating that based on the levels that were in his system, he would have had to ingest all those liters of poison.
Wow.
For it to be present so highly. Not the tiny amount that could have been hidden with milk in a baby's bottle.
Yeah.
So the milk was milk, looked like milk, wasn't green, wasn't tinged with any discoloration whatsoever.
So it would have been a couple of drops at most if it was in
exactly. But yet he would have had to have drunken liters and liters. So they would have had to fed the baby liters and liters at 3 months old.
It's just so frustrating that this wasn't part of the original case. And I get it was the 80s, but still, for them to say this how much was found in his system, this is how much he would have had to have consumed.
And it's only because Unsolved Mysteries put the case on.
And what year was that came out?
That was 90. So she was sentenced in 91. So she was in prison by 91.
Yeah.
So 1989 was when
it happened.
Ryan died. Then she had David Jr. in custody.
Yeah.
And then she was sentenced March 4th, 1991, she was sentenced to life imprisonment. But it was aired in 1990, but it would have taken them all that time to figure it out. Do you know what I mean? Things don't move that quick. They would have seen it, they got involved, started looking into it. So it took a little while. But in July 1991, so she was sentenced in March 1991. Stallings was released from jail pending a new trial. She was placed on house arrest. In September 1991, prosecutors apologized to Stallings and dropped the case against her.
They apologized.
Yeah.
Please tell me there's a payout.
So Stallings won a settlement against Cardinal Glennon's Children's Hospital and the laboratory that tested Ryan's blood.
Good.
She later said that the perception of her case may have been influenced by the case of Paula Sims, which had unfolded around the same time. In that case, a mother had been tried and convicted of killing her two daughters, and there was considerable public outcry over the murders. So at the time, mother had killed some kids by poisoning, I think it was, and she felt that, you know, people were swayed against
By
her
that,
and
yeah.
wanted to make her as, you know, a murderer and a criminal.
For the truth, people.
Yeah. So the Stallings case continues to be cited as an extreme case of metabolic, genetic, or a biology disorder that mimics a criminal act. How messed up is that?
That is fucked up. So how long was she in jail for? Like 2 years?
She wasn't in jail that long because it was, so he died in 1989 and she was out. So he died in 1989 and they arrested her straight away.
Yeah.
They put her in without bail. She had
they arrested her before he died. Yeah.
No. Yes.
Yeah, because he had to hold the baby. She wasn't there.
Yeah.
It was when he got rushed back.
That's right.
Yeah.
It was true. Yeah. So she was arrested. And then he died 3 days later. So at first they charged her with abuse.
Yeah, and then it upgraded. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they upgraded it to first-degree murder. Then she got pregnant, had the baby, and then it all kicked off, and then she was sentenced in 1991.
Thank God for that other baby.
I know, right?
Should still be there.
And from what I remember of the film, it's really quite intense. Like, it's all happening, and this poor mum's, you know, she's just come home with a newborn. The baby's really sick. Shakes to the hospital. It's really
and they
sick.
have to
Everyone
create
thinks she's
that
abusing
intrigue,
it. Yeah.
Don't they? Did she? Didn't she? Did she? But it's fucked because if she hadn't had that other baby, she'd still be in jail right now.
Exactly.
And it just makes you wonder, like, how many fucking actual innocent people are sitting in jail rotting away.
Because
and
people
that's
have
their
made a
life
mistake.
now. Yeah.
And that's why I don't believe in the death penalty. Although when I hear about stories where it's cut and dried,
Duncan Thomas, yeah,
I'm like, kill the fuck up. But then in saying that, where do you draw the line?
Yeah,
there's a grey area.
Yeah.
So you either got to be one way or the other.
Yeah. Because
However,
if you're
I'd
way,
kill some of these motherfuckers myself if I could.
Yeah, but you're right. Like, as if it's one way that you go death penalty, then you're still going to lose some innocent lives. Some people who did fuck all, and their lot in life was to just go to jail for something they didn't do and then die.
Exactly. Imagine how many people have been killed on death row.
I know.
And for, you know, have been innocent. So, yeah, I think you can't, as much as there's lots of really awful people in the world who deserve to die, I think that if it saves one innocent person, then that's the most important thing.
Because that innocent person could be me, it could be you, it could be someone we know, it could be family, it could be anybody. Yeah.
Some people are just fucking unlucky, aren't they?
Fucking oath.
But yeah, pretty full on, hey. I really want you to, I don't think you could find it. Like, if I had so much trouble trying to find it as it was.
I Googled Just Watch and it came up as The Last Kiss Goodbye.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not streaming anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you can probably find it on YouTube.
I mean, even on Foxtel, because they do a lot of old school Lifetime movies as well. So you might just come across it randomly. But it definitely stayed with me, that movie.
So falsely, how do you spell falsely? Falsely accused.
You know how many times like Tyler will go, have you seen this? I'm like, yeah, I saw it, 10 years ago, and we'll put it on. I'll not remember a single thing. But this one movie I watched in 93, I remember vividly chunks of it throughout it, except I didn't remember that Christopher Maloney was in it because at the time he wasn't famous. It was a TV
what was
movie.
the other thing called? Last Kiss Goodbye.
Last Kiss Goodbye.
Christopher, I'll type in Christopher Maloney.
Oh yeah, look at
Without a Kiss Goodbye.
Without
it's
a Kiss
on
Goodbye,
YouTube.
that's it.
An hour and 29 minutes. Falsely Accused is coming up. It's on there.
Totally watch it and see what you think. And look, it may hold up terribly, but I remember watching it going like,
it starts off
poor
with them
bitch.
driving home through the woods. Lisa Hartman Black. Christopher Maloney.
She was quite popular back
Over
in the
the
day.
train tracks.
Don't remember
it's
that.
on there. It's on there. 3 years ago, it was put up, an hour and 30 minutes. A young couple have a sick baby who tests positive for having chemical antifreeze. When he dies, his mother.
But I'll tell you something else funny, because lately I've been trying to just find podcasts of stuff before when I'm doing my research on a particular case, because I think, if I listen to it on my way to work, at least I know the whole story, and then it's much easier to then research my notes because I've got the bones of it. Yeah. So I Googled this one because I was, out of time and on the bones of my ass trying to get it together in time. So I researched it and found a podcast, and I put this, I never listened to the podcast before, put it on. It was a UK couple who were touring Australia, actually, randomly enough. And they were doing it, but they were doing an update. So because they do true crime, anytime an update happens in one of their stories, and they've been doing it for years and years and years, I'll tell you what it is because it'll come up in my Spotify. And then they did an update of something very similar, but I haven't had time to research it, of an Aussie mother who was put away for killing 2 of her children. And apparently she's just been released, and she was considered to be the biggest serial. And her first name was Catherine.
I did see something about this on Facebook recently.
It just happened recently, like the last 12 months or so. Catherine something, I think her surname started with a H. And she's considered to be one of the biggest serial killers.
Yes, here we go.
It might have been Australian 2 or 3 kids.
Acquitted of killing her 4 children.
4, there you go.
Was accused after scientific breakthroughs. Kathleen Folbig.
That's it.
2003.
Yeah.
For children who suddenly died between 1989 and 1999. The worst female serial killer.
Yeah. And was it MMA? They had a genetic condition?
It was a circumstantial case, relied heavily on her anguished diary entries, which prosecutors claim showed admissions of guilt. She was found guilty of smothering and suffocating her children despite a lack of forensic evidence.
But she was in prison for like 19 years or something.
Yeah, they had rare genetic mutations and congenital defects that helped explain their sudden death.
There you go.
Wow.
And they exonerated her after she spent 19 years in jail.
Yeah, I hope she got a fucking payout too.
So she lost 4 babies, then
went to jail for it.
That's fucked,
isn't it? Yeah, that's like witch trials, isn't it?
Yeah, it's messy. But I guess as well, people trying to do the right thing.
But don't lose focus on the fact of what you're trying to do. Don't just try. Yep, she's done it. Tick, check. We've got this. I hate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you see some cases where people lie through their teeth and they get away with it.
Yeah.
That's what we really need to do. We need to find some cases where, they get away with it when they're really, really bad. And then they find out years later, do you know what I mean? Where they actually are psychopaths.
Okay, but we can't tell each other that we're doing one of those. We'll just slip one in and be like, and so they got it, and then they finally got away, and it's beautiful they got away, but they did it.
Yeah.
Totally. Do one of those shock ones. Yeah, so anyway, they did it.
But I still, every time I think of sentencing, I think of that chick who killed that dude with the heroin. And I can't remember her name now, the Aussie chick. Yeah. What was her name?
Okay, I was going to say Christina New.
It wasn't Christina New. It's an Australian singer. A new sing.
Oh, I was semi
you were close. You were close. Yeah, that fucking bitch. Christina, she definitely did it.
A new sing. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, she totally did. Yeah, she shouldn't have gotten away with what she got with.
No, she should not have gotten away with it. What a psycho.
Well, thanks for listening, our dear listeners. Our final true crime of season 25. Of season 8.
And you've got about 5 days to contact us if you want to give a suggestion for our final PC episode, because we still haven't decided on what we're going to do.
What we want to
make
do.
it sensational. So if you've got a suggestion, please get in touch.
They're not going to actually have any
email
time.
Address.
Because next
Tuesday, they're not going to hear
the episode. How about we ask them for suggestions? So we're on episode 95, I think it is. We need suggestions what we want to do for our 100th episode.
Did we figure out if it's TC or PC?
It's just going to be a special.
Oh, it's just
and we're
going to
replace the Christmas episode with it.
Okay. So tell us. It's going to be next season, so you've got some time.
Got plenty of time. It's going to drop in.
Tell us what you want to hear about for the
Yeah,
sensational 100th episode.
Do we do a recap episode? Do we talk about our time from the beginning to now? But yes, thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed this finale, True Crime, for season 8.
One more episode,
which we're recording next week on Pop Culture. We're trying to figure out what we're going to do for it, but it'll be good. It'll be grand.
Yes, we're just going on a very brief hiatus, well earned.
After next week.
Couple of weeks. After next week.
Yeah. Thank you for allowing us that time, guys. Appreciate that you appreciate our time.
Thanks for listening. Follow our socials, please, and comment and share.
And tell your fucking mate. Good night, stupid bitches.
Good night, stupid bitches.
Good night. Yeah, that stupid bitch. He's a stupid bitch. What a stupid bitch. That stupid bitch.